Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for clicking on my video. I appreciate it. So for a long time, truckers have been considered the backbone of America, and I don't necessarily agree with that analogy. I'd like to think of us more like a bloodline, and the shippers and receivers are the tiny hearts, the big hearts. Some are bigger than others, some are smaller. But nevertheless, you have those shippers and receivers that pump the blood, and we are the ones that carry the blood throughout the veins of America. And right now, there is a heart that is in cardiac arrest. And I'm talking about the ports that are along the coast of the east side of the United States right now. Yesterday, nearly 50,000 longshoresmen went on strike as a part of the ILA union, the International Longshoresmen Association Union, and that is the largest maritime union in North America with about 85,000 longshoresmen. So first, let's talk about what a strike is. A strike is a collective work stoppage by employees to force an employer to meet their demands. What is the ILA demanding right now? They are looking for a 77% increase in pay, as well as the stop of automation. Just for a little bit of history, the first labor strike occurred in the 20th century in Egypt. So strikes have been a part of the culture and a part of life for a very, very long time. And the first union that was ever formed was in 1794 with the Philadelphia shoemakers. So needless to say, strikes are a huge part of American culture and worker culture across the entire world. Now, typically with a union, every year there's a contract negotiation, or every couple of years there's a contract negotiation where the leaders of the union go and talk to the employer or the business and try to get a better contract for their employees. The ILA hasn't been on strike since 1977, which was 47 years ago. So it's safe to say that every year that they've gone in to get a contract, they've gotten what they've wanted. So I wanted to find out how often strikes happen, and the strikes vary year to year depending on how many strikes there are. For instance, in 2023, there was 33 strikes across North America. However, there were several more employees that were involved in the strikes at 458,900 workers that went on strike that year. The previous year had significantly more strikes but less employees and less workers. So like we talked about, the ILA is looking for an increase in pay. The starting pay in an ILA union for a longshoresman job is $20 an hour, with annual increases topping out at $39 an hour. In my opinion, that's pretty good pay. They are proposing a 77% increase in pay over the next 5 years. So what I'm understanding that as the new starting pay will be at $35.40 an hour, and the new top pay will be $69.03 an hour. So new employees coming in off the street will be making that $35 an hour as soon as they sign their contract and get to work. And over the next 6 years, it'll increase incrementally until 6 years of time where they top out at $69.03. So for instance, on a yearly 40-hour-a-week salary, that puts you at $70,000 a year at the base level. At the top level for a 40-hour week, you're looking at making $138,000 per year. This doesn't even account for any sort of overtime. It doesn't take into consideration your benefits, pension, or anything like that. Those are all additional perks that are a part of the contract. Now, I know what you're thinking up at the front and talking about the money. That's a lot of money. But first, I want you to consider the danger and that element that they have to deal with on the shore. We literally just had Hurricane Helene hit that area on the south border of America, and it had rippling effects through the coastline of America into Georgia and Tennessee. So they have to live in this area that is repetitively getting hit with hurricanes. Now up north and northeast, you have to deal with the cold weather, sheets of ice, negative degree temperatures, along with being wet and along with being on a ship that's in the ocean with a lot of wind. So I'd imagine there's a significant level of injuries due to the extreme cold. And in the south, they have to deal with extreme heats on the opposite end of that. So down in the south, it can get up to 100, 105 degrees in the summer. Even working in the water, it's salt water, so it's not hydrating. It's actually dehydrating. So watching an interview with the ILA president, Harold J. Daggett, He explained that there are people that are designated as their job to go around and supply water to the workers so they don't dehydrate in the extreme heat. So needless to say, it's a dangerous job to be involved in. And no doubt that the work ethic of these folks are very extremely high. And I don't know if you remember in the early 2000s, the famous Discovery show Deadliest Catch. But if you've ever watched that, those crazy waves that are going on, that's happening at the shore too, along with the hurricanes. So they're having to battle that all day long as well. Now, I'm sure there's two sides of this story where one might think, oh my gosh, how cool would it be to be a part of a union and to be able to get these benefits? And another side that, what are these union people doing? Why don't they go to work? They don't have a family to feed? But it's about more than just the money in this case. There has been a huge surge in automation of the maritime industry where cranes are automated to raise and lower the containers off of the ships. There's machines that do a ton of the work. In fact, according to Mr. Daggett, LA is completely automated. There's very few employees that are there doing anything at all. He also spoke of ships that are completely automated as well, that are controlled via an office employee. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You got a bunch of workers that are looking for an increase in pay, and you got people that are developing automation. So what is the reasoning for automation? Well, in my opinion, I think a lot of it is to either A, make the job easier, or B, get rid of employees. So these fellas are asking for more money, but in the eyes of the people that are operating the companies along the coast, the best way to create a solution for that problem is to get rid of the employees in general, and then they don't have to pay any money at all. In recent news, they've been offered a 50% increase in pay, which would take their $20 an hour up to $22.50 an hour, as well as take the top pay of $39 an hour and bring it up to $58.50 an hour. Unfortunately, the union leaders rejected this offer and stood firm at the 77% increase. So what kind of effect is this going to have on the U.S. economy and economies abroad? A delay in any shipment will always cause backups in the logistics, as we've seen with the Baltimore ship that collided with the bridge. But as you know, a ton of products and services and food and supplies are made directly here in the United States. And that's what we talked about when I said other little hearts. So there's a bunch of little hearts that are still pumping blood and supplying the chain. However, any sort of delay or mess up in the supply chain is going to have ripple effects throughout the economy. And not only that, you got to think when they do get the raise that they are looking for, if they get the raise that they are looking for, what kind of impact is that going to have on the cost of products? Because they don't pay any extra for it. That all gets passed down to the consumer. And a big reason why I think cost of things is so high right now is due to post-pandemic, diesel prices were through the roof. Truck drivers were having a hard time finding fuel in some spots. I remember in Cartersville, Georgia, I went to fuel and they were only allowing 50 gallons of fuel to be pumped because there was a shortage. So over the last 3 years since COVID, the economy has caused an inflation through the roof. Everything is significantly more expensive than what it was just 3 years ago. And in my opinion, that has a lot to do with the logistics. The trucking company isn't paying for that fuel directly. All that is being passed down to the consumer. When you go to book a load, you book a load for X amount of dollars, but that number has to be able to cover your fuel expenses, your driver, your licensing, your insurance, all that. So it doesn't go to the trucking company. They're still going to make their profit. So that gets passed to the shipper and then to the receiver and then ultimately down to the consumer. So what do I think about the strike that's happening on the east and southern coast for this ILA? I am all for standing up for what you believe in. And based on that interview with Mr. Daggett, I greatly appreciated his passion about his workers. And it's very hard to find that in any sort of employment situation these days. Employers look at employees like they're disposable goods. So when a union decides to stand up to that and fight for their employees, it definitely touches my heart to some degree. That being said, Do I think 77% is fair? Well, I'm looking at it from the perspective from a trucker. So to be the equivalent of a longshoresman, somebody working on the docks, loading and unloading ships, it would have to be a local position. So you're home every night, you're home on the weekends. If you want to work overtime, you can work overtime. Currently in the market that I live in, the best paying local job that gets you home every night is an LTL company. And that LTL company is paying about $30 an hour. But there's some other factors to consider in that. From what I understand from looking into this longshoresman issue is that there isn't a whole lot of education, a whole lot of experience that's required in order to get a longshoresman job. You just got to be willing to work really hard. So considering that, a truck driver has to go through a CDL school that he has to pay for. He has to get a certain amount of experience before working for a LTL company or any local company for that matter. In order to drive LTL, which means less than truckload, most companies require you have a doubles and triples endorsement, a tankers endorsement, as well as a hazmat endorsement, all of which cost more to add to your license, and you have to study and take the test for them. So after a minimum of approximately 2 to 3 years, you can get into one of these positions as a truck driver, assuming that the company is hiring. However, the ILA and the Longshoresmen Association do not require any sort of licensing to be a part of their union. Now, I'm sure they need experience and they need to take time to train and learn how to do what they need to do. I do think that employees and workers should be compensated for their time and their effort, but you got to consider the relative danger, the experience, the knowledge, the education that goes into a specific sort of position. Now, the longshoresmen, in my opinion, have a higher threshold for danger based off of what I understand, comparatively to a truck driver, but a lower threshold for education, experience, and training. Now, I don't necessarily want to get caught up in what is called tall poppy syndrome, where I want to cut down anybody that's doing better than me. That's never a part of my mindset and the way I think about things. I want everybody to be as successful as possible. Even the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk of the world, they've created products and services that have completely changed the world. Therefore, I feel like they're due their money and what they're worth. So comparatively to a truck driver, the longshoresman would be making significantly more than what a local truck driver were based off of the same situation. Now, over-the-road positions are a little bit different, and we're out on the road a lot more often. We're not home with our families. Therefore, we make a little bit more money being on the road. But it's always a balance of time and money. So what's my final opinion on the strike, and do I think they're doing the right thing? Yes and no. I do believe that they're doing the right thing. However, I think they are asking for too much of a jump at one point in time. Take the smaller contract now and start working your way up to bigger and better contracts each year. And that's how the world works. Inflation exists, therefore your money and pay should increase with inflation. So all that being said, am I for or against the strike? I am 100% for striking. I think it's definitely important to bear your weight in the economy and show that on full force and demand what you need to demand in order to satisfy that need. And frankly, I'm slightly jealous that truckers don't have a union that will go and fight so that we can get what we are worth out on the road. The best you can do is say no to cheap rates. There have been talks for years that truckers are going to stop driving their trucks, but it seems like every time there's a conversation about it, it never takes place. I feel like since the 70s and 80s, truckers haven't been able to unite and come together and fight for the value that we're worth. That being said, do I think they're doing it a little bit too hard? Definitely. I think 77% is a huge increase from where they are currently at. If I was in their shoes, I would suggest doing a smaller increase. That 50% increase that was brought to the table is a good increase and a fair increase, and I believe that that should have been considered a little bit more thoroughly. But only time will tell to see what they end up getting, or if we will be out a bunch of longshoresmen in the near future. All right, y'all, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching my video. If you wouldn't mind subscribing down below, it means a lot. And let me know in the comments what you think about this strike. Are you for or against it? Do you think they're going about it in the right way? All right, bye.